Hi everybody, happy World Card Making Day. My name is Debbie Farinella and I'm on the creative design team at Sizzix. And I'm here today to show you a fun card that you can create using a few of our products, whether it's a die cutting or I'm going to show you a couple tricks that you can use using some of our new tools and accessories. So the project I'm going to show you for your cards is using our Peony die. I've also used our dimensional cutting pad that'll give you the effect of it coming out of the page. So this looks like something that I would have just cut and added to make it three-dimensional right on top of the card, but I want to show you a trick that we have using our three-dimensional cutting pad. This is using some of our new cardstock, our sculpting toolkit, and also some of our adhesive rollers and glue and a few other accessories. So whether you're creating a card to give to friends, if you're going to be spending your whole card making day making cards for the holidays, or just to have a whole stash ready for any occasion, I'm going to get you started, and I'm sure you're going to have fun creating this and all the other ones some of the other artists are going to share with you. So let me go ahead and put on my glasses and I'll get you started. So the Peony set comes with two size flowers. One is a framelit, and then the thinlet, and then the centers. You have two centers and one leaf. So it depends on how you arrange your card. I'm just going to show you what I did to create the dimensional effect. So as you know, our machines come with two cutting pads, but instead of using a regular cutting pad, I'm going to use our dimensional cutting pad. The dimensional cutting pad has a slit down the middle. Actually, it's a beveled divot. It's not a slit all the way through. It's just divot. So if you know, our cutting pads are used to create a perfect balance of pressure throughout the whole process, so your die will cut evenly. But if there's this little section here that doesn't have the flat surface, that way there's going to be no pressure, so that means that part of the area of the die will not cut through, and I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to take one cutting pad out, and I'm using our Sizzix Big Shot Foldaway machine, and I'm going to use our cardstock. So I have to have one cutting pad on the bottom as always. And then let me move it forward so you can see how I'm doing my sandwich here. So you have the platform, the adapter pad, and then one cutting pad. This is our little glitzy, glittery cutting pad. And I'm going to put the framelit down. So this is the Peony. I'm going to have the blade against the good side. And when I say good side, I mean the grain paper, because if you use the blade against the wrong side of the paper, the side of the paper you don't want, and then you go and cut it, especially if it's a word, you're going to lose, the word will be backwards. So you always want to make sure that your blade is against the good side, which is the textured side here. Now this is the part of the die that I don't want to cut. This part will stay adhered to the paper. So with the divot going down the middle, I'm going to make sure it's clear there. And I want to make sure it doesn't slip. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of our maker's tape. This is like a washi tape. It's a low-tech tape, so make sure it doesn't shift. So that'll help me out here. And then I can position my dimensional cutting pad right there down the center. Make sure the whole area is covering the die. And then I'm going to go ahead and run it through the Big Shot. You can hear the crackling. That doesn't mean it's ruining your machine. As you know, it's just letting you know it's cutting through it all. So peel that off. And now I'm going to take this up, and you see the area that did not cut is where that divot is. And this is the part I want to stay adhered, and that'll be able to have the flower pop up. Another fun technique you could do the same idea is if you're using a butterfly, have it at the base. If you're using it on a flower with a stem, go ahead and add that to the base, have the dimensional cutting pad slit at the bottom, and then you'll be able to make it look like it's coming out of the card itself, so it looks like it's growing out of the card. So I'm going to go ahead and use our adhesive roller just to make sure I adhere this down onto the cardstock that I have already prepared. So I'm going to have the fold at the top. Sorry, it's backwards for you guys. So the only part that's adhered is the part where I laid the adhesive tape, but this part is now coming up. Okay, so that's that. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the same technique, but I'm going to do it without the dimensional cutting pad because I actually want just a full flower. So I don't need my maker's tape because it's okay if it doesn't have to shift. It's okay if it shifts around because I don't need it to pop out of the card. I'm going to run this through. As you know, you can run it through this way or backwards, which is a perfect machine to have if you're at a crop because you can share it with somebody. You don't have to hand them the machine. They can feed it from the other end. So here's another one. And I already have one already set that I also had cut off to the side. So next I'm going to use this thinlet here. The difference between a framelit and a thinlit, the framelit you can see directly through or put your hand through it like a frame. A thinlit has a little bit of dye in between, so that's just the difference if any of you weren't sure. So this one I'm going to go ahead and cut. Same idea, just make sure it's covering the entire area of the paper, otherwise I won't have a complete flower. I'm running it through that way. And as you see, even though this looks like a bladed area, there's still a little bit of pressure going through the machine. It's not going to cut it, but you can tell that it actually did a little embossed design on that area where the pressure from that part was. But to make it a little stronger of an impression, I'm going to do it a little extra step. So I'm going to put it back where it was. I need my tape again, just to make sure it doesn't shift. Tape it on there. One more time on this side, just to be sure. So what I'm going to do next is, instead of using a cutting pad, because it's just going to recut it, even though it's already cut, it won't cut any further, but I want to create a embossed design where it's going to be a little stronger. So I'm going to use our silicone rubber and our impressions pad. This is from our embossing transfer set. So you have the blade up with your paper already cut on the inside. Lay the silicone rubber there on top. And the impressions pad, this acts as my second cutting pad, but it's a little bit softer. It's not going to cut anything, even though there's pressure. It's not going to cut anything at all. And also, let me make sure, you don't want this one on there because it won't go through, because that'll give it too much a restriction under the roller. So I'm going to go ahead and run that through. And you don't hear any crackling just because it's not cutting anything. Lift up the impressions pad, lift that up. And you can see that instead of cutting it, look how much stronger that embossed image is just by using that simple new technique. So that's the emboss and transfer set. Okay, now I'm going to show you how I cut the leaf. I'm going to do them both at the same time. So I have the leaf and then the center. I'll put these aside because I don't need them anymore. I do need my adapter pad, another cutting pad. I'm going to put the center here, and then I'm going to use, I need to cut 2 leaves, but I still want them to stay kind of connected. So I'm going to cut this and have a little bit of the leaf stem exposed off the edge. That way I'm saving my fold. So this is folded in half. And then I'm going to lay that down with a little bit of the stem hanging off. And since this is smaller die, I'm able to do more than one at a time, which is perfect if you're writing a word or putting somebody's name. You can spell it out all in one swoop because it fits all on the platform. And there's enough pressure to cut through those 2 pieces. So here's the leaf. And since the stem was hanging off the edge, I was able to save my fold. Like that. There we go. And then let me take the center here. And then I've got that ready to go. So I had already a few already cut off to the side just to save a little time. So what I'm going to show you next is our paper sculpting kit. The paper sculpting kit adds a little dimension to your projects, whether it's using our sculpting foam or any of our flowers or petals or leaves. This brings them to life a little bit. So it depends on how much you want to have pressure-wise. I like when they're kind of tight. So you're just going to do it on this gray foam base that comes with the set. Let me do one more just for good measure. Okay, let me put a little bit of our express glue in here. And you don't want to line them up exactly. You want to line the circles up exactly, but you don't want these little fronds to be perfect because it adds a little more dimension to what you're working on. And it depends on how tight you want it to be. You can also kind of like ball it up when it's all dry and done. So I'm going to put that off to the side. Just kind of get it that way. Okay, and then if you can see, so inside the leaf thinlet, there's that little vein. I can run it through again with the embossed transfer set, but we also have in the sculpting kit this little gray piece, and that's what we use for the veins of the leaves, just to give it a little more pronunciation. And then you would use one of the tools that comes in the same set, this little pointier one, and you're just going to draw along the vein lines that appeared when you actually did cut it. That way you can crease it up a little bit. And the reason I did it on the fold, because now I can just go like that and it'll be ready to adhere to my card base. So I also want to add a little dimension to my flowers. This depends on how much pressure you want to add and curl it up as much as you want it to be. So the inside of the flower can be a tighter bud if you want. And you're just going to go around. And you always want to do this on the gray sponge that is included in your kit, just because it's spongier and firmer. And then when you go in the center, see how it tightens it up a little bit more? And this one, I don't want to do it too much because I'm going to lose the embossing that I just created with the transfer set. So I'm just going to do it a little bit and then a little bit in the center. One more time, and then we'll symbol. So whether you're doing small cards for World Card Making Day, to add to gifts during the holidays, or just little gift cards that you want to give to people, whether it's a card like this, you could do something small and add it to it. You could use this as all the petals instead of the larger one. It's just so much you can do for World Card Making Day that'll make it a lot more fun, and people are going to love it. So whether you're going to drop a card off at someone's house, or if you want to give them a card attached to a gift or pop them in the mail, you'll have some ready to go. And who doesn't love a handmade card? Okay, so let me go ahead. So here is the fold. It folds at the top. And I'm going to add this one in the center. And you don't want to match it up exactly. You want to do it in the open area of where your flower is. There's that one. This Express glue is perfect. It's forgiving when you're using it, but it also dries quickly, which I love. So this is just a little different take on the flower choices versus the one that I had already done. And then if you want to add a little dimension to the actual flower itself that's at the base, you can do it while it's on here or leave it flat. But it will flatten up and add, you would actually have to add a little more postage to your card, but it would flatten out to go inside of an envelope. So the last part that I like to do is, well, first what I like to do is, if this is too flat, I kind of like to crunch it up because, you know, Mother Nature, nothing's absolutely perfect. And I love when there's a little more rustic to a center of a flower. So that looks a little more realistic. Whether you're going to be using a blending tool or just directly from the pad, I'm using some of Tim Holtz's Distress inks. I have the Scattered Straw and the Vintage Photo. I'm going to add just a little bit on there, just to give it a little more of a natural effect to the edge, or edges, I should say. I just love how that looks. Go ahead. You can add a little sentiment. You could print out something on your computer and add a little sentiment to the center of your card or to the inside, and it makes it a little more personal. So I'm going to add the flower center in there. And then lastly, I'm going to use the glue to add the leaves. And then we will be all done. Just tuck it underneath wherever you want it to be. I just love these three colors together. And there you have it. I hope you enjoyed the project, and I look forward to seeing anything that you create for World Card Making Day, and enjoy everything that you receive in the mail and everything that you send out. I know they'll love it too. Thanks for joining us.